You know, they say it takes all sorts of people to make up a world. Maybe so. Chances are that so far you haven't met very many different kinds. Your family and friends, the people at school and church, they're all pretty much the same kind of people. But when you go into service, you're going to meet new people. Different kinds of people. And one of the people you're going to meet is you. Yes, when you leave home and go into service, you're going to come face to face with yourself. How do you see yourself? What kind of guy are you? Some fellows see themselves as big shots, almost single-handedly defending the nation. Some see themselves as cut loose from home, free to forget the standards they lived by, free to try anything and everything. Some see themselves as good servicemen, out to do a job as best they can and get the most out of it. And some guys, well, you can go in without having thought out the role you're going to play in service and afterward. There'll be opportunities to cut loose and do things you've been brought up to believe are wrong. It takes a lot of courage to stand up to what you believe in. It's a lot easier just to go along. You may not want to go, but unless you've thought things out in advance, it'll be an easy mark. Now, what's wrong with having a little fun? The trouble is, when you lack this clear picture of yourself and your character, you have a hard time stopping something once you've started it. That's what happened to Al. This same sort of problem comes up in any branch of service, but I happen to have been in the Navy, and I know about Al. The first night he had to stand watch, it suddenly came over Al how alone he was. For the first time in his life, he was on his own, with no one to turn to if something happened. He could be in the mess hall with hundreds of other men, but he was alone. At home, mealtime was a time of conversation, relaxation, planning. But here, he was a stranger. He'd been pulled away from home, school, community, church, friends. His private life had become public. He was thrown in with a lot of men who had different sets of ideals. Back home, there were things you did and things you didn't do. And you knew pretty well where you stood. But here, he was alone. And there was no one to talk things over with. Why worry about morals and spiritual values? Why not go with a couple of guys who claim to have the answer? The first time didn't seem so bad. But the second, third, fourth time, he'd started something he couldn't stop. Al didn't feel right about doing some of the things they did. It wasn't a matter of approving or disapproving their actions. It was just that he didn't want to go along. When Al finally talked to me, he had reached the point where he felt he was no good to the Navy and no good to himself and, well, just about washed up. Remember, he faced the same problem as Al, but he met it on an even keel because he had a clear picture of the kind of person he wanted to be. How had he formed that picture? Well, let's look back into his life. In school, one of the things Carl wanted was a spot on the varsity baseball team. But there were so many other things to do. Come on, let's go swimming. Have some fun. Carl had a decision to make. Going swimming now would take him away from practice. Skipping practice would hurt his chance of making the team. And making the team was part of the picture Carl had of himself. So, he practiced. Carl made his decision by applying what we call the test of common sense. When you have the ability to do something worthwhile, isn't it common sense to live up to the best that's in you? Your own home is another place to practice living up to your picture of yourself. Midnight was when Carl agreed to be in. He knew the folks were going out. He could have stayed out later. But there's another test, the test of sportsmanship. How would you like it if someone went back on his word to you? We often call this the golden rule. Your community offers many opportunities for you to develop good moral habits, or the other kind. When you have decisions to make, think about that person you want to be. Try the test of publicity. If you went in, would you want it known to your family and other people you really care about? Your church is there to show you the way, to teach you the basic moral and spiritual values that men live by. Again, the decision is up to you. Do you want to go the way the church teaches, or some other way? Apply the test of looking ahead. Look ahead, because when you choose the start of a road, you also choose the end.
Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer too. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you.
It won't be a stylish marriage. I can't afford